enough. I'm searching for Ian Healy. Has he gone to the gents, or is he... If anyone sees him, give him a nudge and tell him to come up, can you? There we go. Rodders, I suggested maybe your generation perhaps said a little bit more than the previous. Is that a fair comment? Oh, I mean, you're pretty quiet behind the stumps.
Well, how the hell would I know? Because I didn't play in the previous generation, did I?
Actually, I hadn't thought of that. That's a good answer, Ashley.
Anyway, the only reason I said that was because I didn't know what else to say.
Well, that's fair enough, but you were chirpy, weren't you? I mean, is it fair enough to say, I'm not talking about sledging, Rodders, I wouldn't dare do that to an Australian. I'm suggesting, in terms of the role of the wicket-keeper in your generation, started to get a bit more centre of the team, spurring people on, being sort of the energy, the driver. Is that a fair comment?
Don't lie.
Look,
Jeffrey's saying don't lie to him, by the way.
I said very little on the field.
Can we just say, you've got to do one thing this evening, Heels, and you're late for it. Now, come and sit down, for goodness sake.
Geez, I kept for 11 years and never had to go off the field once.
Just for the benefit of everyone, though, give us a bold, Shane. Go on.
Bold, Warnie. I hardly said bold, Shane.
There we are.
Bold,
We love all
Shane.
that. So they were definitely noisy, more chirpy, weren't they, Rodney? I mean, it was started with you guys, I think, you and Dennis and these people. Is that the game became a bit more chirpy?
Well, what you've got to understand also, that there were no microphones when these other guys played.
Okay.
We were the first, I guess, to have microphones, and I mean, sure, you had to say something to someone, didn't you?
Yes.
Usually your teammates, but and just supporting them as you should. And to the batsman, well, the only time I ever really said much to the batsman, if he wanted to try to umpire the game, and then I politely said to him that we do the appealing, you do the batting, and let the bloody umpires do the umpiring.
That sounds fair enough.
Yeah.
I can imagine you might have dealt with Jeffrey Boycott in those sort of circumstances.
Well,
There's only a little
there
nick
are
he got.
exceptions to the rule.
Just so we get the story straight, because he's doing a big tour next year, because as you'll remember, it's his 40th anniversary, I think, of that 100th 100 he scored against you guys at Headingley. It was only a little nick, wasn't it, early on against Off-Ray Bright?
Which one?
Oh, was there more than one?
There was more than one. There was at least two.
Was there?
Probably three, yeah.
Before
and
he
so,
got...
yeah, and you'll wonder why I didn't clap when he got to 100.
Wow.
I clapped when he got to 117.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay. Just so we get the records right. I'm just preparing myself for next year, because it's going to be torture. As you can find. Quick word, Lily, Tomo. I mean, how could you distinguish between them? You tell me in terms of pace, of aggression, characters.
It was quite easy to distinguish between them. One had blonde hair and one had dark hair. But,
Well, thank you, Rodney, yes.
but Tomo was quicker.
He was.
Yes, definitely.
Nastier?
No, not nastier. Dennis was nastier. There are a lot of batsmen around the world that are very lucky that Dennis didn't bowl as fast as Tomo, because there would have been deaths.
Brilliant.
There would have been deaths. Yep.
Skillful?
Tomo
Dennis.
or Dennis?
Which one? Dennis again?
Dennis is far more skillful than Tomo. Tomo was just bloody fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever looked. I never held your hand, Rodney. I'm not really, but don't take it the wrong way.
I'm not starting that now either.
I've never. How have they? They're pretty good, aren't they? For what did you have in there when you were keeping to Tomo and Lily?
Well, if you catch them right, they don't hurt.
But you can't have caught them all right, could you?
No.
So,
Some
but,
of
I mean,
them-
all this stuff about steaks of meat and stuff.
No, that's bullshit. No.
Well, thank you, Rodney. That's been most enlightening. Yeah, blimey. There we go. Jeff, I'll get more sense out of you, won't I?
Hopefully.
I don't know. You'll be much more polite, much more. So I'll ask you the same sort of questions. I mean, you kept wicket to some of the fastest bowlers that there have ever been. I'm not going to hold your hand, 'cause, again, we've done that. It didn't get down very well with Rodney. But have your hands, have they survived? I mean, the pounding that you must have taken.
Well, as Rodney said, you don't catch them all right. So every now and then, there'll be some damage, yes, but, these things over time, I think they hurt a bit less as the memories fade.
Can you count on the fingers of your damaged hands how many overs of spin you actually kept wicket to? How many times do you stand up to the wicket?
Oh, more overs than you may think. I have 5 stumpings. I have 5.
5. You can remember all of them.
I remember every
that's
single
5
one of
stumpings
them.
in 81 tests.
But it's interesting. It's interesting when you're asking Marshy about the sledging, if he had anything to say to the batsmen. And in my case, there was more of a tacit threat there, actually 4 of them. So I never really had to say anything to the batsmen. They
You were very kind to me when I walked past you that time at the Oval. And I thought I got the wrong end. I thought you were bowling off a long run, actually. But you, as I walked past, you were nice. I think you said good luck, Aggers, or something.
Well, I knew the extent to which you were able to defend yourself.
Yeah.
And I was fearing for you, Aggers.
No,
you're not a bad fella.
No, you were kind. I didn't hang around long. I don't recall. So, same question that I put to Rodders. Then come on, the ones that you kept wicket to. How on earth do you try and distinguish? People must ask you all the time, who's the fastest one of all of that crowd? And you kept to all those great West Indian fast bowlers, didn't you?
Well, I reckon that when you get up into a certain pace bracket, 1 or 2 miles an hour doesn't really make too much difference. But every now and then, and I will say, because he made a very marked impression on me on a couple of occasions where I just said, well, I've never ever kept to anything this quick. And that was Patterson.
Oh, really?
On a couple of occasions.
That's interesting,
yes.
because you wouldn't necessarily go for that, would you? If you're just going off the West Indies fast bowlers off the top of your head, that's a really interesting shout.
Well, he just got it right a couple of times. First time, I think, was against England when he just started. Could have been his first test in Kingston.
Yes.
Gat can tell you about that.
1985, was it, I think?
And that was rapid.
Yes.
And he got, the Aussies pissed him off in about 87, I think it was, at Melbourne. And it's actually a funny story. We're just about to get bowled out, so he was out there batting, and Murph Hughes was bowling, and they had him. Patrick didn't really get behind the line too often, and Murph Hughes had him hopping up and down. So, the close-in fielders were giving him a hard time, to call him, coward, get behind it, come on, have some balls, And finally gets out, comes into the dressing room, and he's sitting about 2 down from me. And I just hear him huffing and puffing, and he's putting on his boots. And all of a sudden he gets up and walks to the door, and if you know the MCG dressing room, if you walk through the door between the 2 dressing rooms, you're only going one place, which is into the opposition's room. So I figured, boy, this doesn't look good. So I followed him. And he walks into the Aussies dressing room. Of course, they're padding up, getting ready to go and bat. And he walks in, and as he walks in, everything goes dead quiet. And they're just sitting there staring at him, not moving. And he goes, you, and you. I'm going to kill you. Well, needless to say, the innings ended rather quickly.
Well, there you go. I'm sure one of them wasn't you, Heels, was it? You wouldn't have been one of those that day.
No, we were there. I was in that game.
Were you?
And Patrick bowled all the next day. We batted for 5 hours for 114. That's AB, and he did the kill thing, and he says, and tell AB, we sort our problems out tomorrow. Like that. And Bruce Reid, I think he must have, when he got out, he must have come through our dressing room too and gone into your dressing room. Because when we got off the field, our 12th man, Bruce Reid, was standing there going, plenty happening out there, fellas? like that. Patrick had come sweeping through our room the first time too.
Got to talk to you about Shane Warne, haven't we? I mean, to keep wicket to that, and not just the bowler, but the whole performance. I mean, I teased him a bit. I used to call him a bit of a pantomime dame because he was a bit sometimes, wasn't he? All the big, larger-than-life, all the flamboyant stuff going on. But, I mean, you're lucky, aren't you? Do you consider yourself lucky to have kept wicket to that?
Very lucky. Without Warne, I don't think I'd be here tonight for a start. I don't think the game's ever seen a leg spinner, which is the most helpless craft you have to do in cricket, to spin a ball out the back of your hand 20 metres and fool someone. It's difficult. And for him to be so confident and have enough energy to put into the batsman because he's so confident with what was coming out of his hand. We haven't seen that in a leg spinner before, you know. And he's got two great attributes. And Kerry O'Keefe in Australia says he's just got one problem, Shane Warne, in his whole life, and that's nightfall. But his two great attributes were his accuracy, to be able to spin the ball, put revolutions on a ball, and the quicker you get it spinning, the more swing he got. It would swing in, draw the right-hander to the ball, and have to have him play, and then spin it away if the wickets were doing that. But he could also do that on day one. So his accuracy, putting the ball right where the batsman didn't want it, often was his greatest attribute. And he was very easy to pick. You didn't have to. There was no deception with Warne. Really? Everyone knew, bar Darryl Cullinan probably didn't. Darryl and Robin Smith Smithy, for such, well, both of them, such great players, just couldn't grasp what was coming out of Warnie's hand. But it wasn't very difficult, and yet he still got 700 batsmen out. So that his accuracy and his persistence was unbelievable. And then his ability to change the next ball. So if the batsman was playing and missing from outside leg or not doing anything much, Gucci, for example, could just pad him away for hours and hours and hours. And then you'd say to Warne, I think you've got to bowl on off stump. You've got to get it out on off. Let's try that. He could do it the next ball. Whereas leg spinners traditionally would take time to work their way out to there and then work their way back. But he had such confidence and ability to get his skill done and then concentrate on putting some pressure on the batsman too. The good thing about Warne, he was down with us fighting. You know, I think some geniuses and legends are above their team, but Warne was certainly down there getting in trouble just like the rest of us.
One of those 700 is here tonight.
Well, is that yours?
You had the best view. You had the best view of the ball of the century. Dear old Gat, just tell him now, he's sitting over there. Could he have played it?
We better finally explain it for you, mate.
Could he? I mean, what should he have done? What should he have done?
Well, he knows exactly now. He would have known immediately what he should have done probably about an hour later. Apparently, because Richie Beno's great call of that was Gatting hasn't got a clue. Still hasn't, as he's going past square leg. Well, Richie missed the ball. Richie was in the commentary box looking somewhere else, and he's got the ability to take his time because he's been asleep for a little while. And he goes, Gatting hasn't got a clue. Still hasn't. And Richie had no idea what had happened either. But I'm sure for me as a keeper, Gat should have got his pad out a little bit quicker, further, and hit his pad. It was a series of just enoughs, that one. It swung just enough. And Warne was under a bit of pressure. First ball, Merv Hughes. Yeah. So Warne was about to come in and bowl, and he hears this tss, tss, and it's Merv at mid-off going, what are you going to bowl? Well, I don't know. What do you reckon I should bowl? Bowl that wronging thing you got, you know, like. And he goes, do you think so? And he goes, right. So he lines up again. Tss, tss, no, bowl that flipper thing. You know, that thing that comes underneath. And then finally he lets him go and he bowled that. You know, it was stupid stuff. But it just swung enough and Gat didn't quite lunge and cover it enough. And then so the leg was back here a little bit, the ball pitched, spun, and then your bat just came down a little bit late and then it just... So basically at this stage, at this stage, I'm saying, Gat, sharpen up. You're gone here. Right? So, and then it just beat your outside edge, and then it just clipped the off stump. And I was happy. I was really, really happy because it wasn't 4 buys. so I was way down here. Oh. Guilty. How's that?
That's really nice. That's a lovely telling. Thank you. That's all you had to do, Gat, you see? That's all you had to do. I'm glad I didn't. Bob, quick one for you. You've been around a long time as well now. Has wicket-keeping changed over the generations? That's the technique. I mean, you had a beautiful, silky, easy technique. Has it changed today? Are you keeping wicket in a different way, do you think?
I think obviously the influence of one-day cricket comes into it, and I was always a wicket-keeper batsman. I never lost any sleep if I was keeping wicket well. If I was batting badly, I perhaps would lose sleep. But no, I think the wicket-keeping today is they're adapting to the one-day conditions, really.
Yeah. And for you, I mean, let's not forget, I mean, Rodney's sitting here, Headingley 81. That would be your greatest memory?
My
greatest memory, Headingley 81, the great test.
Headingley's got to be the one. The situation was that I'd come back from being dropped a few times, and I came back at Lord's when England were 1-0 down, and Ian Botham unfortunately bagged a pair. He resigned as captain. Then I came back at Headingley, and the great test match of Headingley, England 500-1 against. The situation was that we were losing hands down, and it's been well documented anyway, that at lunchtime, all the Australians are in the dining room at Headingley. There were 3 players, myself, Mike Gatting, and Bernie Thomas, our physiotherapist. All the Australians in the dining room were pointing out I got them back to the ground, they're all pointing out to the sides, to the scoreboard. And it's Ladbrokes odds, 500-1. So all the Aussies are happy. I turned to Gat, I said, have you seen the scoreboard? And Gat was getting stuck into his lunch.
It's a stick tonight, Gat. I know, I'm sorry about this.
Totally uninterested. So I said, 500-1, 2-horse race. So I said, you can have a bet. And this was long before the scandals of betting. So Gat says, no, not interested. So I went down, I was batting next. I went down to the dressing room, put my grey flannels on, got a couple of pound coins, went downstairs. There's always a crowd of Yorkshire kids. If you don't sign their autographs, they call you Big Ed, and so on. There was no clock in sight, so I asked one of the fathers, what time is it? It's too late, because the Ladbrokes marquee is on the other side of the ground. So I went back upstairs, got changed, the game resumed, we lost a wicket, I went out, I got out, Graham Dilly went in with Beefy, they put on a good stand, we left Australia, whatever it was, 140 to get.
And Big Bob bowled them out.
And that was it, basically.
I can still see you jumping up and down with your hat on. Alec, quickly, because we're moving on here. Moving on. You did everything. At one stage, you were keeping wicket, captain, and opening the batting. Well, how on earth did you do that?
Not very well.
Well, you did do it well. You did it a lot of times. You must have been knackered.
You do as you're told, really. Especially when your dad was a manager.
Oh, yeah.
And he said, if you don't do what you're told, you won't play. So that's what I did.
Yeah.
But no, I loved it. You know, I grew up as a batsman. These people alongside me were out-and-out wicket-keepers. But I started off as an opening batter. That's what I enjoyed doing. And then I blame Ian Botham that I ended up keeping wicket because England lost an all-rounder. They tried to replace him. They couldn't. And then they threw the gloves to me and said, go and have a go. And that's what I did. And by the end, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I kept for 80-odd times for England and loved it.
It's funny, there's 2 of you. Jim Parks is the same then, wasn't he? I mean, the same sort of situation. Suddenly throw the gloves and look what happened.
Exactly right. So my first skill was batting. By the end, it was pretty equal. But no, I enjoyed it, you know. But to be here tonight, sat along people who I looked at, even though I wasn't a keeper growing up, Alan Knott was my hero. And I spent a lot of time in Perth as a youngster when I first signed professionally at Surrey. And Rod Marsh was a keeper for Australia then.
Yeah.
So it's fantastic to be here this evening.
Do you feel, last one, do you feel that you are a little bit of a family? Rodders, are you sort of, wicket-keepers, you all sort of in it together?
They call it the Keepers Union.
Do they? Yeah.
You know, and you say you saw Gilly on the screen today, seeing Bouch and so many people you haven't seen. You've got a common bond. But I think that's cricket in general.
Yeah.
You know, even seeing Gat here, I'll talk to him.
Thank you very much, all of you. Rodney Marsh, Jeff Dujon, Ian Healy, Bob Taylor and Alex Stewart. Thank you, gentlemen. That's lovely. Well done, Rodders.